Walawani, Wababui, Mianga. Hello, let us speak truthfully and respectfully and in the best interest of country. My name's Jason Ardler. I'm the Associate Dean Indigenous Strategy in the Faculty of Medicine and Health. I'm also a Yuin man. My country is the lands and waters of the New South Wales South Coast, and the image you see behind me is Summer Cloud Bay near Jervis Bay, which is where my father's family are from. The beaches, the headlands, the mountains, rocky outcrops and the fishing spots of the South Coast are part of my cultural heritage, both in the past and today. And no matter where else I live or how long I'm away, this is the country I'll always belong to and the only country that I can speak to with any legitimacy. So despite having lived here for 30 years now, I'm still a visitor on Dharawal country, where I'm joining you from today. Dharawal country incorporates the Sutherland local government area and borders Yuin country at the Shoalhaven River in Nowra. I want to pay my respects to Dharawal elders past and present, because eldership is such an important leadership concept in our communities. And I thank them for their wisdom and their custodianship of the land and waterways that form and sustain their country and everything and everyone on it. And I extend that respect to the traditional custodians and the elders of the country where you're joining from. And I acknowledge the strengths of all First Nations people in sustaining the world's oldest living cultures that have prevailed and endured despite so many experiencing entrenched disadvantage, economic and social exclusion, and intergenerational trauma. It's great to be part of this afternoon's relaunch. I want to offer my congratulations to everybody who's made today happen. And I particularly want to acknowledge and thank you for your commitment to embracing Aboriginal language and culture as such an integral part of your identity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason, for those wonderful words, and appreciate that. And welcome, everybody. I'm on Gadigal land today, and I also acknowledge and pay my respects to First Nations people on this webinar today, and to leaders past, present, and emerging. So for those who don't know me, my name's Inam. I'm the Associate Dean Education for the Faculty of Medicine and Health, and I'm delighted to be here to be person of ceremonies for the relaunch of what was the Sydney Health Education Research Network, but is now much more appropriately named Waranara. What a lovely word, and I look forward to saying that on many occasions, meaning to seek, and I think that says it all. This is a really important part, certainly for the education strategy for the faculty, around a future-focused education, teaching, learning and innovation, and using research to inform a best practice for our health educators and our health students, but also for our stakeholders in the health system. As you know, at this time, particularly in Australia, we are in the midst of an outbreak of the Delta variant, and this is putting a huge strain on our health services, and our students have really, and our university staff have stepped up to the mark hugely by helping out with that. And I think we're all extremely proud. And we look forward to our graduates of 2021 going into the workforce early next year. So without further ado, if you have any questions for the Q&A at the end, please put them into the Q&A box. If there are any technical issues, please use the chat and we'll try and help you out as quickly as we can. I'd now like, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Professor Lynn Monrouxe, who's Academic Lead for Health Professions Education Research and convener of Waranara. Lynn.
Thanks, Inam. I think we're playing the video now. Waranara acknowledges that the work of our network is done on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander lands. We are committed to embedding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander knowing, being and doing within and across our network. Waranara is a health professions education research network within the Faculty of Medicine and Health at the University of Sydney, which aims to support, train and nurture healthcare professionals through research and evidence-based education. We believe the understanding of learning and working practices are key to healthcare professionals' well-being and ultimately patient safety. After consultation with the Gadigal community, network members and the university community, we're proud to name our network Waranara, which means to seek in the language of the Gadigal people. It's a play on Wara, being far, and Na, being to see. Every time we say Waranara, we remember the origins of the word and its meaning, and seek to strengthen our commitment to understanding, appreciating and applying Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander knowing, being and doing within our healthcare professions, education and research. This commitment was developed in consultation with key Aboriginal members from our university. Our strategic focus centres around 4 core values of inclusivity and equity, collaboration and courage, respect and openness, ethics and integrity, all of which guide our vision of creating a high-class global community for healthcare professions, education, research, training and support, and our objective of undertaking quality research that contributes to an evidence-based approach that improves our learning environment. Through our special interest groups, we explore preparedness for practice, which includes simulation, work readiness, transitions, work-integrated learning, and placement models. Partnership and professionalism, which includes interprofessional learning, professional identities, professional learning and workforce development, and continued professional development, and innovative curriculum design and development, including assessment, feedback, quality, and evaluation, with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander priorities and technology-enhanced learning in education research as cross-cutting themes. We work collaboratively with our members across schools and national universities and healthcare institutions, as well as internationally. We hold regular networking events alongside theory and practice-based workshops, and we support staff to be senior fellows of advanced higher education. We also host international visiting scholars. We provide award-winning training, such as the Interprofessional Peer Teacher Training Programme. Healthcare professions education research is an exciting area to work in and network across. We invite you to come and join us. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen with you now. Hopefully you can see this. So the video has just introduced you to our new look Waranara, and I'm going to give you a few more details of our achievements since my appointment to the network just over a year ago. Our strategic plan was developed with over 90 university and local health district stakeholders in New South Wales and key university representatives for Aboriginal peoples. We now have 380 members across Australia and beyond. We've run a wide range of events in the past year, including speed networking, micro-conferences and PhD completion seminars. We've supported staff to become senior fellows of advanced higher education. And in recognition of the great work that Annette Burgess and her colleagues have done, the School of Medicine received an international award for clinical teacher training. Moving forward, we're in the process of developing special interest groups with cross-cutting themes. The Partnership and Professionalism SIG aims to develop a greater appreciation and recognition of the role of professionalism within individuals and society. The Innovation, Curriculum Design and Development SIG focuses on doing things differently to achieve better outcomes, challenging existing practices for innovation and educational impact. And our Preparedness for Practice SIG focuses on preparation for and during placements and workforce transitioning. We have 2 cross-cutting themes: technology enhanced learning, which is a forum for discussion about integrating technology into educational practice, and our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander priorities theme, which will facilitate culturally safe health professions education research, ensuring that the Waranara SIGs are supported in identifying where priorities exist in health professions education research. Finally, we'll be launching our new podcast series, Waranara, Yuan, Yuri, where we're showcasing our members' research publications and talking in depth about their topics of interest and the research approaches they're using to examine them. Health professions education research is an exciting area to work in and network across. As we move forward with our new focus, we at Waranara look forward to building exciting collaborations with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. It's amazing work, and it's so exciting to see Waranara having that global reach, now, and I'm sure that will only increase in the future. Now gives me great pleasure to introduce Professor Robyn Ward, AM, who's our Executive Dean and Vice-Chancellor for Medicine and Health. Thank you, Robyn.
Thanks, Inam, and welcome to everyone. I can see that there's 100 people joining today, and that's absolutely amazing to see so many people engaged in this really important area. And I too want to congratulate everyone who applied, first of all, to get this network up and running, and then secondly, have now had the vision to rebrand and reset the network with a fantastic new future for its initiatives. And I think the name Waranara is a really very apt name for all you're trying to achieve through this network. The Faculty of Medicine and Health strategy is underpinned by research in all its formats. And I think one of the key differentiators between the work that we're doing in the Faculty of Medicine and Health at this university and perhaps other universities or other education providers is that we really do expect that the educational offerings are underpinned by a very strong research base. And that means everything from the innovative discoveries of new educational pedagogy to the application and evaluation of educational strategies as they're implemented, and then the resetting of educational offerings as a consequence of those learnings. And another very important part of any educational research endeavour is the training of a cohort of individuals, of academics, who are well versed in how to undertake research in this very important area. As health professionals, we absolutely, through a lifelong process, need to be committed to education, but not just the consumers of education. Obviously, we also need to be the creators of new knowledge. And so this network, I think, will be the formative area in which many of our young academics and students actually start to really understand a lot of the methodologies, a lot of the disciplinary bases that go towards making a very strong educational knowledge base, and how that educational knowledge base is applied to their learnings and how they will take those learnings and apply them to the learnings of others. So I'm thrilled that you've gathered so many people with such a strong interest in this area. You've achieved a lot in just a year. It's an amazing contribution, and particularly pleasing is yet again we're seeing an example of where these initiatives have been set up as a faculty-wide initiative involving all aspects of our disciplinary bases, different types of people, different groups, different thinking, different knowledge. And so I think the diversity of the people contributing to this endeavour is really to be commended, and it's wonderful to see also our physios working with our medical students, working with all across the faculty, and that is going to bring a much better result to both your endeavours and also to the quality of our health professionals as they embark on their careers. Also want to send a shout out of thanks to all of those who have been involved online through this period of COVID. It's been an absolutely challenging period for the health sector, for universities and for communities all over Australia and all over the world. And it's been particularly gratifying to just see how many people in our faculty have pivoted to new ways of teaching, come up with really innovative ideas in education that I think will place our students in a good position to enter the workforce next year, well armed, able to meet any challenges, and to have achieved that over this last 18 months is simply remarkable. So I thank you, and thank also all your colleagues who I know work with you every single day to make sure our students are the best they can be, and also are well placed to be safe and effective health practitioners through a lifelong contribution to healthcare. So with that, I'll hand back to you, Inam.
Thank you so much. And I think you're absolutely right, Robyn. The breadth of our disciplinary expertise and the staff and students is absolutely our strength. Now gives me huge pleasure to introduce Professor Lisa Jackson-Pulver AM, who's the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Indigenous Strategy and Services for the University of Sydney, and through whose One Sydney Many People strategy, I think it's been a key partner in getting us to this point of launching Waranara. Lisa.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'm incredibly delighted to be here. First and foremost, of course, I pay respects to traditional owners of the country. There's not a part of Australia that's not been known, loved and nurtured since time began. And this work is coming to you from places that have always been known. So I pay respects to all of you in your work and your role in bringing us together at this special time to celebrate in especially now, we need every cause to celebrate and to celebrate the launch of this wonderful new network. There are multiple wicked problems that we're dealing with, and one of the biggest problems that we have been dealing with is how do we make sure people understand their role as health providers, as health practitioners, as educators. And we know full well that the greatest gains in health of any population is the role of education. It is not a downstream factor, it is an upstream factor. And people who have got education under their belts tend to make very different decisions than those who don't necessarily have the knowledge or the ability to seek out the appropriate knowledge. And so I wanted to say to you that learning is one of those things that is lifelong, and that all of you as health practitioners, you have no choice really other than to be educated. Sorry about that. So when we talk about how it is people go into becoming doctors and physiotherapists and nurses and all of those different health professions that we have, ultimately their role, and I'm a health professional as well, has been very much around educating others, guiding others, and building on your experience to hand on to the next generations. And I see that this network is one of those really important networks that not only works in an interdisciplinary team within the broader Faculty of Medicine and Health, but the massive influence it's going to have on the rest of the university. I'm very excited for you. I won't take up too much of your time. I'm really looking forward to the panel and answering some direct questions then. So thank you very much, and congratulations to all of you. You've worked terribly hard. It's a wonderful thing to come together and celebrate this Friday.
Thank you, Lisa. Absolutely right. We do need things that we can celebrate, and are very lucky to have everybody here today to do that. I'd like now to introduce Professor Pattison, who is our Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Education.
Welcome, colleagues, and congratulations on this wonderful faculty initiative to recognise the importance of understanding, using and generating evidence on the effectiveness of our educational practices. We're so excited to see this as part of both a faculty and a university-wide community of practice on scholarship and research in higher education, and especially higher education for healthcare professions. It's worth recognising, of course, that higher education is a complex, socially and culturally situated relational process, and research on higher education often demands insights and methods from multiple fields. So we're really pleased to see Waranara as an important piece in a larger network. Of course, the pandemic has brought to the fore many of the important contextual issues for students, what it means to be in a cohort, how to become more engaged, developing as a person at the same time as developing as a learner. Paradoxically, higher education research has not always been a high priority for universities, yet research, we know, is most able to guide improvement in effective educational practice because it provides evidence to support a coherent theoretical framework. Combined with reflective practice, it's a potent approach to continuous improvement in student learning. Importantly, too, it takes us beyond the intuitive theories based on personal experience, which we know doesn't provide a sound basis for practice. There are so many important questions that you'll be exploring. I'm looking forward to seeing Waranara grow and produce great insights and ever greater education. Congratulations, colleagues, on this wonderful initiative, and good luck.
Thank you, Pip, for that. I think fantastic. And I think situating it within the broader higher education landscape, I think is a really interesting point. And I'm sure that through Waranara, we'll be engaging with all the other faculties and disciplines in the university to everybody's benefit. I'd now like to introduce Dr. Kate Thomson, who's one of our early career research leads for Waranara. Kate, over to you.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you to all of you for being part of Waranara in the lead up to today and in the future as we develop the network together. So I'm an ECR, and I think probably I'd just like to share a quick story of something that was really hard for me, but so worth it. So in about March 2019, I remember feeding my baby Jack and scrolling through my phone to stay awake. Checked an email, discovered I'd been invited to contribute to a special issue of a really good international journal, IJAD. Decided I was brave enough to say yes I would. And then when I came back from leave in July, I sort of thought about it, submitted the abstract, and then spent probably the best part of a day to write a really casual 2-sentence email asking if they wanted another co-editor. Panicked, until the instant reply was yes. And I've learned so much from being part of that editorial process. We released a special issue this year, which included my paper, and I also contributed to the editorial. Paper still took 2 rounds of reviews, so there was no kind of shortcuts there. But I guess the reason for sharing that is to say that Waranara and the special interest groups and the cross-cutting themes are, I think, are networks that's deliberately just set up to bring people together regardless of their experience, and perhaps because of their varying experiences, so that we can all learn from each other in a really inclusive way. And so what we actually have is ECRs and MCRs as leaders, not followers, deliberately set up with leadership positions within the SIGs. Of course, the mid-career and the senior researchers are still there, keeping an eye on you, supporting you and whatever. But the idea here is that if you have ideas and you want to share them, this is a supportive place to do that. And not just for the network, but to think more broadly about the direction of health professions education research. This is a space where you can influence that. And if you're not quite ready to share those ideas yet, I'm meant to be the one who's linking the SIGs together. And so, I'm very happy to share ideas on your behalf and then, help to promote you. And there are other people as well who are very good at advocating for their more junior colleagues. So I guess this is almost like an encouragement, call to action, if you like, to say, you are welcome in this space, your voice will be heard, there's still leadership opportunities and there will continue to be for HDR students and ECRs. So if you have suggestions, then let us know. Quick tips, figure out what you're interested in and make your contribution there. It doesn't have to be the same contribution as everyone else. Do what you're into, suggest what you're into. Create opportunities to work with people who you admire. It might be people who are thoughtful. It might be people who are warm and fun to be around. That's also really important when you're working with each other. I've been lucky enough to have kind of by now maybe more than 50 co-authors, and I have learned from each one of them. Even if it's what not to do, that's still good learning as far as I'm concerned. Just ask for help if you're not sure of things. People are super generous with support, and there isn't ton of expertise in this network. Obviously include a little bit of flattery, say why they're an expert and why you want to hang out with them and do research together, but ask. And I think, this is a really good way to do it in a supportive place that's easy access, it's efficient. We know how busy everyone is. We know how hard it is to make time for scholarship and research. So kind of go for it, I guess. Even if it is a bit scary and you have to kind of force yourself to do it, Waranara is a really good place to do that with some really brilliant and really supportive people.
Thank you so much, Kate. Appreciate that. And it's so important that Waranara is sustainable, and we are developing the next generation of leaders in health education's research. And so I would echo her comment to get involved, come and talk to us. Any contribution will be absolutely valued as part of that culture of inclusivity and diversity. It now gives me a huge pleasure to introduce our invited speaker, internationally renowned researcher, Professor Kevin Eva, a psychologist by background, who's Associate Director and Senior Scientist in the Centre for Health Education Scholarship and Director of Educational Research and Scholarship in the Department of Medicine at UBC in Canada. He has been Editor-in-Chief of the journal Medical Education since 2008 and has taken that from strength to strength over the last 13 years. He has published extremely widely in many areas, but particularly around areas such as student selection, diagnostic reasoning, how to understand and assess competence and skill, and also from a sort of more higher level policy level, how do regulatory authorities assure patient safety and health practitioner competence. So Kevin, a huge thank you for taking the time to come and join us for these opening celebrations.
Thank you, Inam, and thank you actually to everybody who's involved in creating this network and getting Waranara off the ground. I wish I could have forewarned Kate that I want to give up about half my time so I can hear her say more, because the advice that she's just offered is spot on as far as I'm concerned. And I would echo that, even from across the big pond between us, the names in your midst are internationally known and renowned, and so you have an incredible amount of expertise available to you that is going to take the network from strength to strength. So I am truly thrilled that I was invited to play a small part in your celebration of the relaunch. I would certainly rather be there than here, of course, but nonetheless, we'll make do, and I'll hope to come visit at some point in the future. But where I am is in North Vancouver. Specifically, I work and live and play on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. This is an image of the University of British Columbia campus. And I decided to show this particular picture because you can see both my office down in the corner and where I'm sitting currently in my home in North Vancouver on the other side of the Burrard Inlet. For those of you who might be enticed to come over this way for a visit, my center would certainly be happy to host you, and I very much hope that we can be sister networks, so to speak, as we both continue to pursue the same goals. And if any of you need more enticement than the academic richness of across the ocean academic collaborations, down here at this point, you'll find UBC's Nude Beach. So that said, professionally, I'm joining you from what's known as the Centre for Health Education Scholarship, as Inam just mentioned. I moved to Vancouver about 11 and a half years ago, precisely because I had the opportunity to try to help build a network like the one that you're building so successfully. So I can tell you firsthand over the course of those 12 years how amazing it has been to watch that growth, to see the community come together, rallying around this all too important cause of improving health professional education for the sake of better healthcare. So in all honesty, I'm a little bit jealous that you're going through this relaunch and all the excitement and enthusiasm that goes with that. You all know as well as I do, it's not going to be perfectly smooth sailing, and I'm sure it hasn't been even just getting to this point. But I have complete faith that this network is going to continue to raise the University of Sydney's reputation and impact as you grow and strengthen your position as a world leader in health professional education research. So that said, the specific question I was asked to speak to this evening for me, afternoon for you, is this one. Why is networking so important? Given the reason that you're all here and the fact that you're involved in the network yourselves, I'm sure I don't have to explain the correct responses to this question, but I'll just try to reinforce or remind you of a few things that I think to be particularly important aspects as a way of prompting additional reflection on what you're hoping to achieve as individuals and what you hope the center or the network itself is able to achieve. And so when I stop to think about why is networking so important for health professional education and health professional education research? The first thing I couldn't help but wonder was, how do we define health professional education in and of itself? What is it that we tend to talk about so simply as the field of health professional education? And I think it's important to pause for a moment just to reflect on that, because this is truly a field of scholarship as opposed to a discipline or a particular subject area. It's influenced by countless disciplines and individuals who are completing countless activities, even though most of us, as Wendy Hughes' research has shown, got here by chance. The vast majority of people who call themselves health professional educators in one form or another didn't really set out to become that, to the point that the one universal among us all seems to be that most of us got here by accident. In fact, this is almost a decade old now, but if you look at the Academy of Medical Educators definition of health professional educators, the best they could do is offer the notion that it's those people who spend a lot of time and energy and professional development in this domain. This is one of the most non-specific definitions I've ever come across, but it had to be that way in order to be inclusive of the wide array of people who are undoubtedly represented within your network. And I started there because I want to remind you all and hope that nobody ever forgets that that effort we've all made to be inclusive can create feelings of isolation. In an ironic way, the claim that we are health professional educators can leave individuals in their own small corner of this field, finding it difficult to identify role models. Having an uncertain professional identity, and just as importantly, an unclear reward structure. And so I hope that you will see this network as an opportunity to find those people, to make sure that they're feeling supported, and make sure that they feel that community around them, so that they feel motivated to continue the important work that you're all striving towards. To give a second reason for why networking is important, though, I'm going to put up this image and just wait a moment to see if anybody knows who Thomas Young is. I'll look in the chat room to see if there are any answers coming forward. And at least not seeing any quickly. I won't prolong that wait, because I feel fairly safe in guessing that nobody knows this individual. And that sort of reinforces the point I want to make, because Thomas Young was labeled by an author named Robinson as the last man who knew everything. He died in 1829, so the claim of Robinson was that it's been almost 200 years since any individual could possibly possess all the world's knowledge. To to be clear, he shouldn't be confused with the last man who believed he knew everything. But Robinson appears to have been the last one who did actually know everything. And think about that in medical education terms specifically. This is a very coarse representation, but you can see the growth in our field just by searching in PubMed for papers that come up when you look for medical education. It's truly exponential. It makes me feel sorry in many ways for newcomers to the field. I took on my first faculty position in 2001, and I had a lot less to learn than people have now. It is a much steeper hill to climb for those who are coming to medical education to try to figure out what do they need to know, what remains to be known, and how can they make a genuine contribution to that. So again, I mentioned that because the second reason I would argue to keep in mind how important networking is that you can't do or know it all at this point in time. There's just too much to know, and that's critical to keep in mind as we continue to try to bring other people into the fold, that they're going to need some support, and they're going to need some way of not feeling completely overwhelmed by the volume of knowledge that's already out there. In fact, I think that's a good thing to keep in mind, in part because we shouldn't try to know it all. And this is an exceptionally diverse field. And if you think about all the different roles that I alluded to earlier that are represented in the group of 100 or so of you who are present, I'm going to try to represent that by showing this flower, because being Canadian, I'm contractually obligated to put this in every one of my presentations. Many of you will recognize it as the CanMeds flower, but I've changed the labels to administrator, teacher, clinician, innovator. These are the things that we do as health professional educators. And I think the field has grown and professionalized to the point that we do a disservice to ourselves and to the field as a whole when we expect any individual could do each one of these things at an exceptional level. We all have roles to play, we all have our own strengths, and it's coming together in a network to share our complementary expertise that really drives progress and drives the successes that we've observed over the last multiple decades. In thinking about that, I actually went in Google and just put in the words academic discipline. The text here is rather small, but most of you are sitting very close to your screen, so I hope you can read it. But what intrigued me was this is a list that came up in Wikipedia. It's obviously not comprehensive, but when I read through the list, I can identify by name at least one individual who I've worked closely with who was trained in each one of these domains. This is an incredibly rich area, and that network is the only way to take full advantage of the breadth of perspective and knowledge that the group as a whole can bring to bear. So for reason number 3 of that question of why is networking important, I just want to emphasize that it's that rich tapestry that really makes the difference, that has led our field to have such success with productive tensions, with problems that we probably can't resolve because they're so complex, but that grappling with them has enabled us to keep moving forward. It's a tapestry that enables all the important outcomes that we don't have time to go into great detail of today, but very easy to point you towards some real successes, including how rapidly most of our programs were able to respond to this unprecedented pandemic. And obviously it's the amplification of scale that's absolutely vital when we start talking about how do we spread the word, how do we get more people involved so that we're raising the water and as a result helping all boats float a little bit higher. So I'll close with just two more slides, one of which summarizes Patricia O'Sullivan's work that was a review looking at how do we engage in effective collaboration. And so if I were to leave you with advice that they were the ones who offered, it's to join this network by, first of all, overtly clarifying your motivations and values, and obviously respecting the motivations and values of your colleagues. Pursuing different networks dependent on the problem that's being investigated, rather than getting locked into any small group. And treating the interdisciplinarity that is present in your midst as a means to bridge the gap between theory and practice. These are really essential activities, and I'm confident that you're all well positioned to engage in them, but would encourage you to do so very deliberately and thoughtfully. If I were to offer my own twist, I'd simplify things even further by just saying, as you engage in this network, it's critically important to remain humble, that it is that diversity that's valuable, and the challenge that we feel from our colleagues who offer different perspectives and might not always be comfortable, but are really important to help ourselves grow and take advantage of the network. And along with that, remember that networking is not about making your work easier. Collaboration is not about making your work easier. It's about making the work better. And again, I look forward to seeing how you accomplish that as you continue this way forward. Certainly wish you the best of luck, and in the spirit of good networking, encourage you please to reach out to me if there's anything that I can do to be of support, or any opportunity that you think could be useful, just to have a simple conversation to bounce ideas around. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Really important words there and advice, I think, for a new network to ensure, I think, its sustainability, as well as making sure it keeps to its core mission. Thank you so much. So I think now I'd like to bring the panel back, if you're happy to put your videos back on, but I'd also like to introduce two additional panel members. That is Associate Professor Michelle Dickson and Ms. Emma Walke. If you'd like to introduce yourselves, Michelle and Emma.
Hello, everybody. I'm Michelle Dickson. I'm a Darkinjung Narragaowa woman, and I'm an Associate Professor of Public Health, specifically Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Public Health. And I am so excited to be part of Waranara and look forward to a really healthy, robust future.
Thank you. Emma.
Yaway, Dingiwala. I'm Emma Walke. I'm a Nyangabal Bundjalung woman from the north coast of New South Wales. I'm the head of Indigenous Health for Sydney Medical School, and also the academic lead for Aboriginal Health in Lismore, where I am today.
Thank you. And if you do have questions, webinar visitors today, please do put them on the Q&A, and then we'll be able to answer those for you. But perhaps if I start off with perhaps Michelle and Emma, having helped create the new network and its name, Waranara. Do you think, I know, Michelle, you already have networks with Toronto, I think. What other ways do you think Waranara can now engage with some of that work that you've been doing internationally?
Thanks, Inam. I think this is a really fantastic opportunity. I think that Kevin's opportunity for us to visit was very exciting. And I think that I'd like to sort of link back to something that Kate mentioned in her talk, and that was her call to action, that we all, we all reach out and make those connections. And I think that a really important part of that is building relationships, and that does take time, and we need to nurture them, care for them. And some current collaborations, for example, my work with the University of Toronto, it has been largely because of the fact that we've reached out to each other, built those trusting relationships that we continue to really care for and build, and bring people along with us. And I think that's the really important part, looking for the opportunities to work across our professions with similar goals, but from different angles. And I certainly see that, Kevin made the invitation to us today. others of us have existing collaborations, not just in Canada, but elsewhere. And I think we bring those to the table and invite people in.
Thanks. So Kevin, I think you've got, as soon as we can travel, we're hiring a plane and we'll be right over. So thank you. Thank you. Is your house big enough? I'm not sure. We'll have to talk details later.
We'll make room.
Yeah. Perhaps Kevin and Lynn, also around, what has COVID done to health professions research? Any disruption has challenges, but also opportunities that have arisen through where we are now. So the last 2 years nearly, what do you think has changed for the better? What has been enabled through COVID? Perhaps Kevin, you'd like to see your reflections.
Sure, I'm happy to give a quick start to that. What changed in COVID, first and foremost, for me is an indication of the most wrong prediction I've ever made in my career. When COVID hit, I actually took steps at the journal to try to make it resilient out of fear that we would get a decrease in the number of submissions that we received. I could not have been more wrong. By April of that year, submissions doubled and they have stayed there. It's amazing how much more interest and effort and engagement there is in health professional education research right now. In terms of content, my most recent editorial actually argues that I hope that the focus doesn't change because COVID is nothing more than the current context within which we're living. It's a platform from which we can learn important things, but we don't want to get our research efforts bound too tightly to that particular context. And so I think the real advantages it has provided is much more opportunity for cross-institution, cross-site, cross-country collaboration, because we're all so comfortable getting online and talking like this and don't need to rent the plane in order to have a very effective conversation.
Thanks. Lynn, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks. I think that's really interesting, Kevin. I do remember you being slightly panicky at the beginning and saying, I think we're going to not have any. And then suddenly we were all inundated with submissions. And I actually think I was at the same time taking over Waranara in the middle of a pandemic. And the question was, do we even do this? Is this the right time? Should we not be waiting? How are you going to set up a network when, everything's going so crazy? And I actually think that worked in our favor. I think it worked in our favor, number one, because our first wave of the pandemic was not as bad as it is now. So we all went and hunkered down, but we were able to connect through Zoom, and we actually made some amazing connections that way. So I feel that actually it benefited our network, which got us off to a good start, and that helped to snowball. The other thing I want to say is I agree with what Kevin says about we don't want to make the context of COVID to be what we research in health professions education. But do we not want to think about the context of pandemic in a way? Because I don't particularly believe it's going to end here. And maybe further than that, and on a more conceptual level, the context of uncertainty and the context of being agile and being able to manage uncertainty and bring creativity into what we do. Perhaps that's what we think about. So abstracting it away from COVID and even from pandemic, and just thinking about uncertainty and how we educate our students for uncertainty, how we nurture that, and how we respond ourselves in that space.
Thank you. And perhaps Kate, as an early career researcher there, how has COVID impacted you, and how have you sort of taken the advantage, some of the opportunities that COVID has had for you to do for your work?
So I think probably the big thing is around the meeting times, and that you can put more time into meeting times and less time into commuting. I think that's probably for people who have very limited time, as well as connecting, like Kevin's very different time for him than it is for the rest of us at the moment. So I think the additional part is really cool, as well as writing the papers that maybe were sitting there for a while and you're like, I really will get to that one day, but the kind of data collection or analysis takes precedence. So then you sort of go, oh, well, I'll sit down and write that paper because maybe some of the active research isn't happening. I think it's probably little things like that for me. I don't know that it's sort of the big things that it might be for other people. But yeah, most of my research is qualitative. So like Zoom interviews are really cool, and the automatic transcription and things like that. So like finding those technologies and being forced to use them sometimes is a good way to build your research skills when you may not have otherwise made time for them. Yeah, I think it's probably, for me, it's the little things like that. We go, all right, well, I have to do that now, so I better get, at least competent, not necessarily brilliant, but competent is sort of what we're aiming for here.
Thank you. Thanks. Emma, perhaps moving to you, sort of based in Lismore and rural and regional Australia, how do you think this network will really help you in your area of expertise, but in broader health professions and First Nations health as well?
Yeah, thank you, Inam. Can I just check that you can hear me, because apparently I've had some sound issues. Okay, cool. I think it's a good question. I was thinking about that idea of just what the discussion you're having around COVID or not COVID and technology. And what I've noticed is a really good example is that actually Lynn and I are working on at least 2 projects together, if not, all of the stuff around the network. And we actually have never met physically, but we've spent quite a bit of time online. And I think it actually goes to access, and it makes me think about how these types of things offer people who might not be able to get to Sydney or who might not be able to normally be involved, that they could be involved in these projects. Obviously, overseas is one of those things. So I'm really excited about it, because I just think it opens it up for so many people, and it makes me think about, well, it's great for people to be able to come up here and spend time up here, but if they know us before they come, it makes it even nicer. And so there's these really good opportunities to do that, and to have yarns with people to make people feel safe and comfortable. And so I look at it as an access thing that's exciting to me.
I just want to say, Emma, I can't believe, it brings a whole new meaning to meet what it is to meet someone, because I feel like I know you so well, yet we haven't met. And I'm guessing one thing I don't know about you is how tall you are. We'll get to that one when we do finally meet.
Not so tall.
Me neither.
Thank you. We've had an excellent question, I think, for Lynn from Lisa around Lisa Hampshire, around what Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander ways of knowing, being, doing illustrate research that covers your point about living with uncertainty.
Yes. Well, I think that's more of a statement than a question, and I think it does, and I think that one of the things that I'm really interested in is how we live with uncertainty, but how we learn from uncertainty, and how we embrace it and allow that to let us not be so stuck in what we think we know. So in our own ways, in our own ways of doing and being. And I've learned from Emma, Michelle, and Chris Evans as well, and Susan Parker Pavlovic about how to think differently when developing relationships, when networking within this space. They've been my mentors in this space, and I'm very appreciative of everyone for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that. Jason, perhaps a question for yourself. You've had a career before, very lucky to have you with the Faculty of Medicine and Health. You working in government in education. What do you think we can learn there around networking, using partnerships that are sort of very broad across education, and particularly again with regards to inclusiveness, equity, and First Nations opportunities?
Thanks, that's a really good question, and I wouldn't assume that the government sector does it a whole lot better, I must say. And in some ways, what we can learn is what not to do, maybe. But I think what we do know is that most of the issues, most of the complexity that we deal with, in our modern society, whether it's pandemics or anything else. These are complex issues. They are multidisciplinary issues, and they need a multidisciplinary approach to deal with them. And so it really goes back to Kevin's point about nobody can do it all, nobody can know it all, and nor should we try. So networking, collaboration, it's the only way forward, really, to deal with these. And I guess bringing it back to a First Nations worldview, we do take very holistic views of things. We definitely take a whole of person, a whole of country kind of attitude to things or view of things. We're not really a culture of people of segmenting things, dividing things up. It's all about the whole. And so the more expertise, the more perspective you can bring to these things, the more diversity of views and thoughts, the better the response is going to be.
Right, thanks, Jason. And Lisa, would you have any sort of comments on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Just reflecting on part of your name and where it came from, NARA, Education and Research. It's really about that recognition of the power of networks, that one person isn't the font of knowledge, as Jason and others have mentioned. And the power of it is being open to other views and other opportunities to learn and grow. For a long, long time, Aboriginal people have been banging on the door. Look, I've got something to say. Look, this can help, this can help. And for so long, there's been a wholesale disregard. And now, through all of the work and the generosity of all of the people on this call, for example, in our very own university, there is this giganormous opportunity to really show how it can be done, and how it can be done with love, with respect, and holistically. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add to it.
That's great. I think that's a message coming in loud and clear, that we need to avoid the atomization, siloing, either consciously or subconsciously, and really embrace that holistic approach. And perhaps, Robyn, as a final comment, as we're nearing 2 o'clock, what are you hearing from our health partners as you're clearly engaged with our health district partners at the ministry and the federal government levels? What are they wanting our students to do that perhaps is different from what they were doing 20 or even 10 years ago?
It's amazing how this COVID pandemic has really been the catalyst for people thinking about what's possible, and instead of coming up with the 50 reasons why it can't be done, actually initially and at the first point going, actually it could be done this way, this way, and this way, and this way. So I think the transformational change in health has come about recognising, first of all, that students are actually part of the health system. They're not someone else's responsibility until they enter the health system, and then they become part of the health system. So they've been embraced as actually part of the health system. And I hope that never changes now, because it has taken almost 18 months for them to get to the point where they now are more fearsomely owning the students than even we are, because they say, no, they're our health professionals now. Sort of, yeah, you do a bit for them, but they're really ours. So that's been amazing. And I think the other thing that has really changed is that respect for the interdisciplinarity, the multidisciplinarity, and their need to engage with us on that basis. So they're not so interested in this sort of silo engagement either. We train health professionals, we do research, we're part of one health system. That's how they want to work with us. So it has moved from this siloed approach to a holistic. We're all part of the health system. We all do everything from prevention right through to intervention of very complex healthcare. Why aren't we all just part of the same system? And I think that has just changed attitudinally, which has been, I think, for the better. And one of many of the things that COVID has done on the positive side of the equation, it's not all negative. It has actually really disrupted our thinking and attitudes. And so there's a huge appreciation, I think, for that relationship now.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's 1:59. I do pride myself usually on finishing on time. So once again, I thank you so much for sparing your time for this last hour. I know at the moment there's many calls on your time, and I appreciate that. I think it's a wonderful start for Waranara. And thank you so much to Kevin for spending his evening with us. And we look forward to seeing you either virtually or in person very, very soon. Please take care, everybody. All our best wishes to your friends and family at this challenging time. Stay safe and have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.